All right, so z-scores, okay? Remember from yesterday, to find z-scores, you got this funky little equation going on right in here, okay? But that don't mean nothing because we don't deal with that. So what that meant again was that your z-score is equal to your data point, whatever that data point is, minus the mean, all divided by the standard deviation. Okay? Knowing that, do the two warm-up problems, please. So my z-score up here then would be 45 is my data, minus 54 was the mean, all divided by 6 is the standard deviation. 45 minus 54 is negative 9. Divided by 6 gets me a z-score here of negative 1.50. You'll see why in a minute. Okay. Yes? Negative z-score there makes sense. Okay? The data point was less than the mean, so that means I'm 1.5 standard deviations below the mean. Okay? Hybrid of 57 here now. 57 is more than the mean, so I should get a positive z-score here. Okay? So z is 57 minus 54, all divided by 6. That's going to be positive 3 divided by 6, which is positive 0.50. Yes? Yes. Okay? So, what can we do now with that? Okay? So, with the z-score, that helps us find it standardizes, as we learned yesterday, it standardizes our data. Okay? And it tells us where our data falls in terms of the standard deviation. Okay? So, you have probably heard at some point in time that you are in a certain percentile. Okay? When you guys all become parents, if you choose to go down that career or that life path, if you will, okay, the doctor will probably tell you your child is in the 90th percentile in weight. Okay? Or if you take we don't really take the WKCE tester anymore, but before we took you guys were in the 80th percentile of this test or something like that along those lines. Okay, what that means is, so if we go back to the 90th percentile, so if Lucas Linsmeyer, my oldest child, was in the 90th percentile, that means that there are 90% of the babies his age weigh less than him. Okay, that's what 90th percentile means. Okay, which if you're talking weight or height or something like that, probably not the best, but hey, whatever. Okay, but if we're talking IQ, I want to be like a higher IQ. I want to, but that's just me, crazy like that. Okay, what a z-score does is it helps us find that percentile because it standardizes everybody's score. Okay, so what we're going to do then, or how we're going to use that, there are two methods to do this, and Party talked about it yesterday in class, that you can use a z chart, okay, which is the red sheet that I gave you. That's a z chart. One side of the chart is for positive z values. One side of the chart is for negative z values. Okay, so you got to know what you're dealing with when you get there. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay. The other method is on page 3 of your note packet today. And on page 3 of your note packet is how to do it on the graphing calculator, on the TI Inspired calculator. We are not going to teach the calculator method. We gave it to you as a resource if you want to learn that yourself, but that is totally up to you. You won't have to calculate that on the test on Thursday or on your first semester final. Okay? You can use the Z-chart to find all of that. Okay, just so you are aware. All right? So, what that Z-table tells you is it tells you, based off of your Z-score, the Z-table will tell you how much of the data, or of the population, what percentage of the population is below that Z-score. Okay, that's key. It tells you all of those numbers on that chart tell you what percent below that number. Okay? Might want to write that down. The Z chart is below that number. Okay? So, if we go back to that second example that we just did in the warm-up, okay? We got a Z score of 0.5. We had a Z-score of 0.5. So what that's going to do then is, first off, the left column is for the tenths. Okay? So the left column is for the tenths, and then you go across, once you get there, for the hundredths. Not a big fan of that E. Okay? So that's why before, Joe, why I was rounding to the hundredths. Okay? I round my Z-scores to the hundredths because that's how I read my table. So if I have a Z-score of 0.50, I go down my column. Grab one so that you can follow along. First off, it's positive, so I make sure that I'm on the positive side, not the negative side. I go down the column until I get to 0.5, and then I go to the right until I get to the 0 column. Well, that's the first column, so that is right here. So that tells me that, based off of that data, that there's 69.15% of the population below that mile per gallon mark. Okay? Doesn't tell me above, it tells me what's below. To get what's above, okay, I have to subtract that from 100%. Okay? So there's 69.15% of the population is below that level, and there's 30.85% above that level. But your Z chart only tells you what's below. You got to do some extra math to get above. Yes, ma'am.
Why did we go to the 0 column?
Because it was 0.50.
Oh.
If this would have been 0.55, then I would have went down here to the fifths, and then I would have went over to that one. Okay? With me? Okay? All right? So, based off of that, let's go back to the first example. The first example, or the first warm-up, it had a Z-score of negative 1.50. Correct? Okay? So I have to go on to my negative side now, go down the column to negative 1.5, and go over to the 0 column, because it's negative 1.50, and that gives me a 0.0668 right? So that means that 6.681% of the population is still below that value. Which means then 93.319 is above that level. Okay? With me? Let's put it to work. Let's do some other type of problems. Okay? So let's still consider the problem related to the hybrid vehicle. So we still have a mean of 54. We still have a standard deviation of 6. Now, I will tell you this. It is extremely crucial that you read the problem. Because you're going to be looking for one of 3 specific words. Or, what is it? Is it synonyms? Words that mean the same but are different? Is that synonyms? My mother said I would be good at English. Okay? Alright? So, one of 3 specific words or their synonyms. That is below, or less than, or you know what I mean? On the left of kind of a deal. Okay? Between, or above. Those are the 3 words that you have to look out for, because that's going to tell you how you have to do this problem. For instance, in part A here, we are looking for greater than. Okay? So my z-score, the percentage on here, isn't going to help me in the answer. I'm going to have to do extra work because this red sheet only gives me below or less than. I'm looking for greater than. Okay? So let's first find the z-score here. So my z-score is going to be 64 minus 54 divided by 6. 64 minus 54 is 10. 10 divided by 6 is 1.67. Agreed? Yes? Okay. So 1.67 tells me then that if I go to my z-chart, I'm on the positive side, correct? So I go down to 1.6, and then I go over to 7, and I get 0.95254. 0.95254. Everybody see how I got that? Down to 1.6, over to the 7th column, that gets me 1.67. Yes? So that tells me that there is 95.254% of the population is below 64. Correct? But what do I want? I want the above population. So I need this population over there. So how am I going to get the above population? Subtract it from 100%, right? Okay. So 100 minus 95.254 gets me, so the 6 gets me to 6, 4 gets me to 3, 7 gets me to 6, 4.746%. Agree with that? That is the population, or the percent of vehicles that have gas mileages greater than 64 miles per gallon.
I'd like to see that.
It's a hybrid. A Tesla gets what, 120-ish? Yeah. There's Tesla power stations now over by the Marriott, yeah. Okay? Because they have to have them like every 200 miles or so. They have to have a power station. Okay? You now calculate the next one. You calculate B and C for me, please. So I get a z-score for part B of -4/6, which is negative, negative, oops, hold on, I gotta go back here, erase those two, there we go, negative 0.67, yes? Okay, and I'm looking for below, so now whatever I get on my chart, that's going to give me direct, right? Okay, so I go to negative 0.6, and then I slide over to the 7 column, and I get 0.25143. So that tells me that 25.143% of the vehicles get less than 50 miles per gallon. Yes on that one. Enough time to do C? Now we want to go in between them, right? So I'm going to have to find a z-score for 52. And that's going to be negative 2/6. So that's going to be negative 0.33, right? Okay. Which then, so negative 0.33 goes to 0.37070. Yes? Okay. Find the z-score then of the next one, which was 60. So that's a z-score of 1, which is 0.84134. Yes? Okay. So if I look at it in terms of a number, or a graph, if you will, okay? So right there is 52. Right there is 60, right? Okay? And so what this is saying, what that z-score of the first one that goes with the green, is that 37% of the vehicles are below this green. Right? And what the purple one is saying is that 84% is below that one. But I want in between, right? So what am I going to have to do with those percentages? Subtract them. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to go 84.134 minus 37.070. And that's going to give me 460.7. So 47.064% lies in between. So 47% of the hybrid vehicles have estimated gas mileages between 52 and 60 miles per gallon. Okay? With me? Try number 2 now, please. So less than 90 texts per day. So that's going to be Z equals 90 minus, my mean was 100. My standard deviation was 25. 90 minus 100 is negative 10 over, I don't like how that looks. Over 25 gets me a z-score here of negative 0.40, correct? So negative 0.40 tells me that, gives me on my z-chart a 0.34458. So that tells me that 34.458% of students text less than 90% of the time, or 90 texts per day. Yes? What percent of teens text more than 140 texts per day? So first we got to find the z-score. Bless you. So that's going to be 40 over 25, which is that 1.6?
Yep.
1.6? So I look on the positive side now. 1.60 tells me that that is 0.94520 below that, but I want above that. So I'm going to have to take 100 and minus 94.520%, and that gives me 80 gets me to 6, 480 gets me to 5, 5 gets me to 100. .48% of people text more than 140 texts per day. What'd you do wrong, Austin? Forgot to go below, or you went just below?
I did a really simple mistake. When I was subtracting the .054, I did from a 100 and a 1.
Oh.
So I got a weird number.
Okay. Percent of text between 80 and 110. So my z-score for 80 is going to be negative 0.80, correct? Which is 0.21186. then my z-score for 110 is going to be 10 over 25, which is what's that, 0.4? Still, yeah. Okay. So that gives me 0.65542, but I want between them, right? Both of those are below, so what do I have to do with those? Subtract them. So 65.542 minus 21.186. 6 gets me to 12, that's a 13, so that's 5 gets me to 13, that's a 4, so that's a 3, and then that's a 44. Make sure we gotta check it. 2, carry the 1, 4, carry the 1, 5, carry the nothing, 5, and 6. Yep. Grandma Ethel would be so proud. Did you ever know that? I just taught my kids that because my grandma taught me that. When you're subtracting, you add those bottom two, and you should get the top one. That's how you check it. Grandma Ethel taught me that, and I just taught my oldest that. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, yeah. Once in a while, the old math teacher knows what he's talking about. But you got to start left. You got to start on the right, and you work your way back in, because then you're carrying the ones. Okay? Green is tonight, due next Thursday, day of your test. But again, I stress, do green today. Don't wait until next week, Wednesday, to do green. Okay?